don't want the client to be in a referee situation. And I also have trades and staff to protect too. I don't want them working in this environment every day. I mean, it's a terrible, awful situation. But to your point, when I wanted to terminate, it was really for his benefit. And I pushed hard, and I should have held firm on it because he just didn't know what he didn't know.
Welcome to Curious Builder Podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host. Today I've got Allyson Anderson on from Integro Builders in Chicago. She's also been on episode 73. And today is a special treat. We are going to continue on with our series of Losers Are Winners. And Allie, because you're such a winner, I know you must have been a loser at some point. I love it. I love this intro. The whole point of this is to share, how we've lost, how we've did dumb things, what we've learned from it. Obviously, hopefully each one of these little losing stories has what you learn from it in the future. And the goal of these episodes is really just to share that you can't become a stellar company like yours. You can't succeed without failing. So if you want to know more about Allyson's story, you can tune into episode 73. But thanks for joining us on a Thursday, Allie. Let's post 4th of July. What you got? Did you blow up your fingers so then you couldn't work on
No, I kept it pretty low key. As
right.
I get older, the less exciting I feel like I get. So I let the other people handle the fireworks, and then I clap or tell them to run away if they're hovering.
I do like watching the Instagram clips of people just doing completely dumb things with fireworks. It is strangely amusing.
Yeah, I did go on I definitely went down a rabbit hole of people blowing up houses and things with their fireworks. What are you doing?
Impressive.
Yeah.
Well, I know you're a straight shooter. I think one of my favorite things about you is just how straight you tell your stories, and it just very matter of fact. I assume you have a fair amount of epic fail stories through your multi-decade career. What do you think are some big ones that, as you look back on your past, have really helped you and sort of, really eye-opened it and said, hey, man, I can't do that again, and this is why?
Yeah, I would say, a lot of the big mistakes I've made over the years have been interpersonal. I came from a corporate background where there's a lot of synergy and a lot of passive aggression and a lot of kind of fake positivity in order to get projects moving forward. And I think my biggest mistake, especially early days, let's say the first 5 or 6 years of my company, was really trying to push that that everyone has to get along and everybody has to be happy all the time in order for this project to work. And also I really pushed myself early days of being the architect's builder, where we're coming in, we're all about the project. We want, we're not going to sell out the architect. We're going to only focus on the project. And that's all well and good until you're working with an architect that doesn't operate the same way. And so I think I was trying to apply an Integro approach to everything we were doing, and it wasn't always landing right based on personalities. So I think one of the biggest lessons that I learned was that, on these projects, being direct is not being rude, and calling out things for what they are is usually the best case scenario. I feel like I spent a lot of years really protecting architects on our projects. And if I was working with a really great architect, that served me well. But if I was working with a fast and loose architect, it really bit me. And in some cases, put me in some legal challenges with clients who were just confused. And then, learning about the real story of what happened about any given situation in a legal mediation. Because at the time, I wasn't just calling it out for what it was. I was trying to protect the architect and sort of blase over a mistake that was made here or there. And then in the meantime, that architect turned around and changed the narrative in the background. So I would say that's definitely number one. And then the second biggest mistake I ever made was not diversifying my portfolio. So, we were always doing custom, we were doing architecture led, we were doing custom homes, and then we were growing. And then we started, first we were doing $300,000 projects, and then we were doing $600,000 to $800,000 projects. And then we started doing multi-million-dollar projects. And the problem that we ran into is that when you're in the multi-million-dollar market of home building, it's a totally different world and it takes longer. So the projects take longer, pre-construction takes longer, building the relationships takes longer. And so we ended up with these lulls in between projects. So even though we were maybe making more money because we were doing bigger projects, we over at the end of the year, we really weren't, because it was taking longer. We can't just get a project that crossed our desk on March and started in June. We get a project that crossed our desk in March and we're building it the following March.
When you think about diversifying, I guess what comes to mind is like remodeling, new builds, commercial, or are you thinking even different like price points? Like, hey, you could have new homes at multi-million. You could also have new homes at a different price point. What does diversification look like to you, or what would you have wanted it to be?
Yeah, I would say diversification is different owner types. So, on the custom side, it's like, okay, we're doing custom renovations, multi-million dollar project. Then we're doing commercial build outs, maybe some hospitality. And then we're doing developments, projects that we own that we're selling. And, I started doing that just like a couple years ago, within the last 2 years, because the economy is shifting, and the economy seems to, like, every election seems to directly impact residential construction. Just the clientele, people pause, people get nervous, people get excited, right? It's like we sort of go through this feast or famine thing. And sometimes as a buyer's market and sometimes as a seller's market. And so really changing the owner type is just having eggs in multiple baskets where money is flowing, and having those residential developments that I own is really keeping the lights on. Because if I'm the owner and I'm the builder, and then I also own a real estate brokerage, but it's like I'm the owner, I'm the real estate broker, and I'm the builder. What that means is that I have multiple pots of money in that development. But as long as I'm the builder, Integro Builders is the GC. And so Integro Builders always has a project that's paying the bills, that's paying the payroll. So I don't need to really make one dime on that residential development to make sure that my company is solvent any given year. So
How long did it take you to figure that out? Like, because you've been in business for what? I can't remember, 14, 16 years? How long you been?
it'll be 13 years.
13. And what point did you to start diversifying, and what was the actual scenario that happened that was kind of the light bulb moment, or did you sort of organically just sort of kind of come into it?
It happened. I started thinking about it about year 10. So that would have been 2, 3 years ago. And then I started acting on it about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I'd say the catalyst for it was 2 liens in 1 year.
I'm sorry, it
You
was
know,
what?
2 liens in
Oh,
1 year.
2 liens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where it was like all of a sudden, it's like all the cards just sort of fell. We had crazy, crazy things happen. And then we just had this deficit of cash flow
What
that
do
happened
so
all at
you were leaning, I assume, clients?
once. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long are those still playing out, or how did those
Yeah. I
resolve?
mean, the thing is like the average litigation lien suit takes like 4 years. This is sort of the problem when I say, I just did a panel the other week where I was like, everyone thinks they want to do multi-million dollar projects. But the reality is like when really wealthy people get confused, they call their attorney. Like, they don't call you. If you're working on projects under 1 million, these are working people who are not so quick to do that. So I guess part of our other mistake too is, as we got into the multi-million dollar realm, we had to start really choosing who we were working with as far as the architecture and design teams on projects, because the liability is huge. If you've got people who are not all about the project, as the builder, all of a sudden, all that risk you're undertaking becomes very tangible in certain situations. So,
Did you ever have a client that you felt like, a lot of times, if you've been building for a while, at least in my experience, except for one, two, you'd have a client, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine,
oh,
that when the clients, usually, you look back and you kind of post op it and you're like, well, was that orange flag? Was it a red flag? It's obviously easy to look back in hindsight. And, I can only speak for myself. The couple that I've had that have been very difficult, I don't think there's anything I could have done in hindsight. I mean, I could have done certain things better, but like they were not red flags back at the origin point. So without a crystal ball or magic 8 ball back that they had, you know, in the should I take this job, the little triangle. You and I are old
Mhm.
enough to know what those are. The millennials are like, what are they talking about? It's cool magic 8 ball. You should buy one. Actually, you
They
know what?
are
I should buy one
awesome.
for my kids, but my kids would love those. They're such a great, sorry, just a nostalgic 80s moment. Anyway, but it's hard when you look back and you're like, what do I learn from this? And there's little things, but we talk a lot. I know you talk about this too. I mean, you've been talking about it now, identifying your ideal client. Sometimes you got a tough one and there's nothing you could have done about it. And you know, it's not that you can't do something about it actively, but you kind of just like in it and you just got to get through it. How have you sort of managed some of those difficult moments when you know you're like, well, I'm, you know, halfway, you know, I'm halfway up to the top of Everest here. Like it's as hard to go up as it is to go down, or better yet, you're at the top of Everest because if you're halfway up, you could have just could turn around. But like if you're at the, it's like you only have one chance. You got to go to the end. You got to get back to base camp. How have you handled that?
Well, I think mostly what I've done is whenever I've had hard times on projects, I've really psychoanalyzed it. Like I'm an over analyzer. Like I just get obsessive about it because I don't want it to happen again. And because we want projects to go well, you know, we want people to be happy. And I try and own our role in whatever's happening. But I think there's so much emotional turmoil that happens on any project that's completely outside of our scope, but whether it's between marriages, between people's own personal attachments to money and emotions that surround that sort of project onto us. It's like, I know that I'm getting the worst version of whatever person it is that I'm working for. And the residential side, not so much the commercial, but the residential, where it's like, this is highly emotional for them. It's stressing every part of their life, logistically, emotionally, with their, you know, in their relationship with their partner. But I think so I try and look back and see like, okay, what could I have done differently? And for me, the diversification came from exactly what you said, where, you know, I looked back and I was like, we didn't do anything wrong, you know, like we didn't do anything wrong. We just had, you know, I mean, okay, maybe we had a bad architect on the job that could have done better. But in one case, we had a decent architect on the project. And in one case, we were in a slow moving car crash. We knew that the clients weren't going to pay. Like they were angling to try and negotiate a final payment halfway through the project, but we're halfway through the project. You know, you can't just up and leave and abandon your clients. Like it doesn't look good to the municipality. It's not good from a reputational basis. And so I had to make, you know, the calculated risk that's like, okay, I'm going to finish this project at cost because if we end up in litigation, I need to be able to clearly show that I built them a beautiful home in
Wow.
court, right? And then the other one, looking back, I did try and terminate that agreement early on, like in rough, where I was like, ooh, this is bad. And I think when I look back on that one, I should have stuck to my guns. Like the client talked me out of it. And I think I should have followed my gut and been like, no.
So this was a new home or a remodel, the rough in?
It was a remodel, but we call it like interior reconstruction,
So you wanted to
where it's like
basically,
we're completely you know, like all the floors are down, all the joists are down, the roof is down, you know, we're keeping the exterior walls, and that's about it.
so your instincts told you that this was over, get a termination letter, get everything evened up, and then depart. Walk
Mhm.
us through that. What you don't have to go into the specifics of what led you to want that, but it sounds like the client talked you out of it, and then you must have finished the project and then thought, man, I should have stuck to my guns. Is that the short of it?
Yeah, I mean, there was a really bad dynamic. I was just really where it was coming from is the architect was completely unqualified for this. This was like a project where we had gone under contract. It was supposed to be a $2 million project. It was turning into a $4 million project while we were under construction. That was hard enough in and of itself. But then the architect, instead of leaning into us and us kind of huddling together for the benefit of the client, the architect turned on us and then was trying to gaslight very obvious problems that were occurring as a result of the project fundamentally changing during construction. So everything was turned around on us. It was like, which it was very difficult because like we have to communicate, like when there are changes and change orders and things like that. We really traditionally rely on the architects to back us up, and if there's an issue, it's generally handled on the side together with the design team. We come to consensus, we come to the client together, unified. That's what's best for them. But in that situation, I could tell that the architect was freaking out and was like completely unqualified. We didn't have an interiors team. They had never done interiors,
Was this project brought to you by the architect, or did you come?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I just really, and they were getting hostile and doing all the nasty things that come along with that. And there was like the gaslighting and the manipulation of the situation. And I just felt, and the client was buying into it. And that's where I was like, this is just a bad situation for us. I don't see a pathway to completion.
This episode of The Curious Builder is brought to you by Olive & Vine Socials. If you're a builder, a designer, or an architect looking to grow your brand without dancing on TikTok or spending your whole life on social media, listen up. Olive & Vine Socials specializes in Pinterest marketing, blogging, and email strategy for luxury home brands. They help you turn your beautiful work into a strategic SEO-driven content that drives real traffic and connects you with your ideal clients without burning you out. Ready to grow smarter and not harder? Visit oliveandvinesocials.com and tell them the Curious Builder sent you. Just so you know, I've been working with Alyssa over at Olive & Vine for 3 years. She helped us launch the podcast. She's helped us grow our brand at Mark Williams Custom Homes. I could not do what I've done without her help. And I'm more than happy to announce that she's our latest sponsor for the Curious Builder podcast.
Lake Society magazine is Minneapolis' premier target market boutique lifestyle and design publication. It embodies the unique lifestyles and design of the Minneapolis City Lakes neighborhoods. From Lake of the Isles to Lake Harriet, it showcases the best in local design projects by both premier builders, architects, and interior designers in this area. Lake Society magazine has the look and feel of a national publication with glossy covers, high-end finishes. It's mailed directly to upper bracket single-family homeowners in the City Lakes area, and it's the perfect local coffee tabletop publication. Subscriptions can also be available through the website lakesocietymagazine.com. Additionally, publisher and founder Karen Steckel has over 27 years in the local magazine publishing industry and has a passion for high-end photography and quality graphics. Her commitment to quality, visual simplicity, and beauty are strongly reflected in her beautiful Lake Society magazine.
You know what's tough, and it sounds like you saw it through. It sounds like it was probably pretty messy. Have you had projects where you have terminated a project, a quarter of the way through, a third of the way through, halfway through?
No.
I mean, it's interesting. I know Brad Levitt has been on the other side where he's taken over projects that were halfway, and it's interesting because it's kind of a loose scenario no matter who you are. I think designers and architects have a little bit easier sort of out clause if they want. I think the builder and the client are sort of stuck. It's a messy marriage when it breaks up because from the client's point of view, let's just say you're halfway through. If it doesn't even have to matter the reason, let's say I passed away or you passed away or your company went insolvent or whatever the reason was, it doesn't even have to be a bad reason. I mean, that's a bad reason, but it doesn't have to be because you chose to. It's just for whatever reason, it didn't work out. Now the client is in a real pickle because let's say they come to me and say, hey, Allyson is off this project. What do you do? Well, my lawyer is going to write a caveat of carve outs. Like I'm not responsible for the foundation, anything that's been done before me, I can't take responsibility for. And I have to, does it line up with my schedule? I mean, that project is likely going to sit 3 to 6 months before it goes on again, depending on how busy the other builder is. And it just becomes, you can see, I mean, I'm just educating the public if they haven't thought about this, it gets super messy. And then on the other side, if you are the builder, you have a conscience, you're trying to do it, that this owner is going to have a real hard time with it too. And hopefully both people can work it out and say, you know what, things aren't great. Let's see this all the way through, because the best case scenario of us, even the best case breakup is still a breakup and it's still bad for both parties. And to go through, while it might be painful, is still probably less painful than the breakup. Do you agree with that statement or not?
Not anymore. No, because we didn't make it.
You didn't? You kept going in it and it still didn't make it.
Yeah. And it just got worse and worse.
Oh, no.
I was 100% right, and I tried to terminate again like 6 months later, where I was like, look, I'm telling you, like, it's not working. Like, the architect needs to work with a GC that they want to work with. Like,
Right.
we were, they consider every RFI to be a judgment on their behalf. Like, they're not, and it's like, I don't want the client to be in a referee situation, but I also have trades and staff to protect too. I don't want them working in this environment every day, like with your architect. It's a terrible, like, awful situation. But to your point, where it's like, right, when I wanted to terminate, it was really for his benefit. And I pushed hard, and I should have held firm on it, because he just didn't know what he didn't know. And my point was like, look, we'll finish rough framing. We've done the foundations, we've done the underpinning, we've installed the windows. We can warranty that in the termination, which will allow you to hire a qualified contractor to come behind us. That contractor can call me, be like, Allie, what's up with this project? And I'll be like, all good. It just didn't, we weren't jiving with the architect. It's better. Like, go ahead. I know you have a good relationship with the architect. Like, you take it over. That would have been the best case scenario for him. But now, we're 6 weeks from finishing, and I'm finding out, he's run out of money. The house isn't insured. He's doing backdoor deals. Like, architect is floating around in there, taking kickbacks from subs, like
Architect
vendors.
was taking kickbacks
Yeah.
from subs?
And it was really the bank who shut the project down. And then I was like, okay, like, this is, again, it's like, okay, we were now 2 years later, and I still didn't see a pathway to completion, which is what I told him again. I'm like, it's not even that. I was like, the problem is I can't finish. Like, we aren't finishing. Like, there's still a change order every day. There's a change order. Like, the design isn't coming together. We're not able to collaborate. This has only gotten worse. And now your architect is telling you it's okay to do these other things that are not okay. Like, now you're in big breach. But also, like, we don't want to be here forever. That's really where it landed. And I was like, I don't know. Now you can't hire another a qualified contractor to take over. Now what do you do? And that's what I told him. I'm like, I don't know what to do.
So how did it terminate then? So
It really hasn't. Like, it's just been in limbo.
it's still sort of actively
Mm-hmm.
in limbo.
Mm-hmm. I think he's mad, but that's the problem, where it's like, you have to be a united team, because if the client starts playing referee, that means they have to choose a side. They have to choose who's right and who's wrong. And there's so many technicalities and everything that come in, that it's an impossible situation.
I've got a great quote for you. So the designer I'm working with right now, I've said it a few times, but I got to give her credit. And her name is Linda Engler. And she's been around a long time. And she has this great line I heard her say to one of my clients. I'm like, I got to write this down. And her comment was, the entire team needs to be on one side, because the project will always fight the team. And we can't have anyone on our team not on our team. So architect, builder, client, designer, all in one team, and then the project over here. And I'm thinking like this bull, right? Like, this bull's like, or this, wrestling like a giant whale in the ocean. Like, you need the entire team fighting that one thing, because the project fights you. It, delays, weather, whatever. And so I just thought that was such a unifying statement. I've given her a lot of credit for that, because I really, really appreciate, that mindset. And I've had it before where I've even interviewed people on the podcast before, where they're like, now it seems like a lot of builders are trying to get into the consulting phase or the client rep phase in other states, which I'm not opposing to that. I think that might be beneficial, especially if there's a relationship. But I interviewed someone who was an architect, and the architect was also the owner's rep, which I was a little confused at. Yeah, your eyebrows were as confused as mine were. And I was like, so wait a minute, you're the architect and you're the owner's rep. So how does that work exactly?
Right.
And so anyway, I never, I mean, she must be an amazing saleswoman, because their clients do it on all of the projects, and I get, if you got a good one, you got a good one. I'm just sort of interested, like, what sort of the nuance of that is. Because how is that not just different than just saying, hey, this person has right of first refusal on all things? Because it's fine. I mean, I'm sure there's situations where the client is like, I mean, we've had busy clients where they're like, hey, whatever my designer picks, just do it. Like, okay, but I need to make sure it's in writing, and we need to I've never had that scenario, so I'd be kind of curious if you've, because I could see that running out and being a problem where, even if they're writing it, they still need to be informed of it. But I would imagine some of these really high end clients that are, multi millionaires and beyond, probably have teams that make a lot of decisions for them. I'd be very curious to have someone like that on and say, so what happens when you get to the end and something's wrong? And they're like, well, I didn't approve that. And you're like, well, you told us to go with whatever they picked. This is what they picked. Have you ever had a scenario like that?
Yeah, I mean, we make everybody approve everything to the nth degree because yeah, like that stuff happens. Like I've had clients come back to me who have signed a physical sample of something and then came back because they didn't like it and are like, no, I didn't approve it. It's like you approved it in email, you approved it on the schedule, and you signed the back of it.
And what did they say? How did you resolve it?
There was really nothing they could do. I was like, the answer is yes. The question is how much. Yes, we can change it.
It's so,
But
I mean, you need to be my counselor. I had one very recently where exactly what you just said. They approved it. They signed the sample and the stain was, I mean, I'm actually colorblind. I'm color deficient. Red and green are my colors. And so, but I'm serious. That's actually true.
yeah.
And so I tell my clients every time they ask me for opinion, I used to give people my opinion. I don't give my opinion anymore ever
Mhm.
on color. I always say that's my card. The
Yeah.
designer picks the colors. But anyway, so this color came down and they asked, he's like, well, is this the color that you would want? I'm like, that's not really, I can tell you if it's like installed correctly. I can tell you if the finish is good. Like, did my guys do a good job? Yes. But like the color, that's not really where I hang my hat. That's the interior designer. And frankly, that's you. You're the homeowner. Like, do you like it? Everyone sees things slightly differently.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, this is what is so difficult about our profession is, and this is where I feel like I've personally have been, I'm not going to say victimized because that's a little strong, but like I'm sort of held hostage to my own humanity sometimes. And I think a lot of builders are. I think I would benefit for us. I picture you as kind of a badass who just says, who has a better job at saying no than I am. Because like the way I handled it was and they didn't even have to do this. I did this to myself. Hey, they've been a good client up until now. They're in an area I want to work in. They have a lot of friends. You know what? I can spend $1,000. Should I do it? Or sorry, is it my responsibility? Oh man, I'm painting myself into a hole here. No matter how I say it, I kept coming back with like, it's the right thing to do, even though it's not my issue. So I took care of it. And then guess what? I had to do the rest of the floor and then the stairs. It just kept going.
Yeah.
It was and they never remember the thing that you did for them. But there was no way, once I start that, there's no way kind of out of it. And so I don't know if I've learned my lesson on that because it's still, they're unhappy with it. And our job is to make them happy. It's just that you're trying to find people. If you can base it in logic, I can work with you. When they start going beyond out of the logic tree, I do have a really hard time with that. Anyway, I don't know what I'm supposed to do because I keep falling trapped to kind of a similar scenario. I don't know how to escape my own sort of
Yeah, it's
sensibility on
hard.
that.
It is hard because like as the builder, there's so much trust that your clients are putting in you. Once they sign that GC agreement, they're locked in, right? Like our price is the price, and that's a big responsibility. And I love how you said, yeah, you're like you're like it's your own humanity is like what hurts you on projects. I mean, I think that's really common. For me, I just learned consistency is kindness. If there's a change order. And that's kinder to them than they know because they know that if they're making changes, they can expect a change in price so that they're not playing the lottery with favors, because yeah. And then you're locked into a situation where if you do it once and then you don't do it later, when you don't do it, it feels like a punishment for some reason. And they feel like you're communicating something beyond the thing. And frankly, if you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. Like that's just how it goes because it's their personal, it's their personal money. For us, like we're architecture led and we do that for a lot of reasons, but one of the primary reasons is like I'm a firm believer there's no room for ego in construction. Like you just got to eat dirt every day. Like that's our job as the builder. Like no one can do what we're doing, but everyone's got an opinion about what we're doing and how we're doing it, right? And so that's walking the fine line. But the benefit of that is that I enjoy looking up on a project to the design team and to the architect and being like, you tell me, like I like being third on the totem pole because I feel like it does absolve me of like design selections. And also if there is an issue, like if I'm working with a great architect on a project, like that architect is going to buffer a lot of that for me. Like if a client comes and they're like, I don't like the color, like a lot of times it's the architect who's there with me, next to me, being like, this is unreasonable, like, and I need that support, especially the larger the project, the more the liability. And if you don't have a strong architect that can stand next to me and be like, okay, this is, like what she's saying is reasonable. This is not, blah, 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 blah. They may not like it, but it'll be easier for them to swallow. It's less of a me versus them, I feel like a really good architect helps keep it business. And that's really what we want. But again, going back to the challenge of that means that now I'm working with a handful of architects. I can't just work with any architect on a project like that. Otherwise, I'm going to end up in a situation where I found myself painfully realizing like, oh, we can't just work with anybody.
Wow,
and also, I can't just keep hoping things are going to get better. Like they're not. It
what
starts
would you?
bad, it's going to end bad.
Yeah, I mean, we've learned a lot of good nuggets here. I want to respect your time as well. It sounds like we could go on for this one. Could be an hour long, actually. So, thanks for coming on the podcast today for our Thursday Q&A. For the audience, we're kind of mixing it up a little bit. Thursdays is kind of a variety show, but we're going to be doing a sequence over the next 6 months of basically interviewing people like Allie around the country that just talking about difficult situations, kind of a peek into our businesses, how we struggle, because every business struggles. And a big part of what we want to do on this podcast is share that so that we can all learn from each other. Thanks again for tuning in to the Curious Builder podcast. We'll see you next Monday. We've had the podcast now for 2.5, almost 3 years now, and we have a consulting page, one-to-one consulting. You can book my time for 1 hour. Perhaps you've heard a guest where you like one of the topics. Maybe you want an introduction to some of the guests that I've had on. Perhaps you want to talk about branding or marketing or anything that we've covered on the podcast over the last 2.5 years. You can book a time at curiousbuilderpodcast.com. Thanks for tuning in to the Curious Builder podcast. If you like this episode, do us a favor, share it with 3 other business owners. The best way that we can spread what we're doing is by word of mouth, and with your help, we can continue to help other curious builders expand their business. Please share it with your friends, like and review online, and thanks again for tuning in.